Say it loud. Voices of change. Hi, welcome to CommDev podcast where we say it loud, amplifying voices of change. You are with me, Rose Moremoholo, and you definitely know I have my co-host here with me who will introduce himself. Come on now. How are you?
I'm fine. My name is Emmanuel Mensah, and welcome to Say It Loud. Today, we have the honor of hosting a globally renowned scholar, a pioneer in communications and development studies. He's also a leading expert in positive deviance and a leading expert in entertainment education. We have none other person than Dr. Arvind Singhal. Dr. Singhal, thank you for having us. Thank you for coming.
I'm deeply honored. This is home for me. I spent 17 years at Ohio University. I love CommDev, so thank you for welcoming me.
Oh, thank you so much. We appreciate having you again. We know you are family, you are part of us and have been for a while, for years maybe, if I may say so myself. But
Yes.
Can you explain to us the concept of positive deviance? Because that's what Emmanuel started off introducing you with. So what is positive deviance and how does it challenge conventional problem solving in our development work?
Certainly. So positive deviance is a problem-solving approach. And hopefully solving problems to make the world a little more equitable, a little more fair, a little more just, especially for those who may not have a voice, whose voices may be silenced or rejected or overlooked. So it's a problem-solving approach, but it is a problem-solving approach for addressing complex social problems. And what we mean by complex social problems are problems which have such intertwined causes that it's very difficult to untangle them. So if you want to understand malnutrition, for instance, you're interested in solving that problem, you have to look at issues of poverty. You have to look at issues of food security. You've got to look at issues of status of women, because girl childs often in many contexts don't eat very much. So when you have all these intersecting reasons, it's very difficult to untangle it. So positive deviance is ideal when you have very complex social problems, because the fundamental premise of this approach is that in that very context where there is poverty and food insecurity and gender and hierarchical issues, there are some people, some groups, some families, some households who face the highest odds, who may be poor, who are not food secure, but for some strange reason that we don't know, their children are well nourished. And if their children are well nourished in that socio-cultural milieu while they face all the odds, then they are deviations from the norm. And they're positive because they have solved the problem. So this approach is a way to see what is working against all odds, and by understanding how a poor family that is food insecure creates the conditions for their children to be well nourished, by deviating from the norm, the answer is there. And if you can identify what is it that they are doing, which creates the conditions for their children to be food secure, then you can amplify that. So look at what's working against all odds, find the positive deviance, figure out what the heck are they doing, which is uncommon, and scale and amplify that. So that's the approach in a nutshell.
Okay, Dr. Singhal, how do we engage communities in identifying and amplifying solutions that already exist?
So it is highly important that we work with communities to create the conditions for them to self-discover that there are people within their ecology who have found better solutions to existing problems. And this part of self-discovery is quite critical. So you work with the community in a way that they ask the question, is there somebody out here who's doing a little better than most others? And is there somebody out here who faces all the risks? So you first create the conditions for them to be curious. And then let's go and look at data. Are there some kids here? Let's weigh them. Let's look at the circumference of their forearm. Let's plot their growth chart. And, let's see, are there some kids who are well-nourished who shouldn't be, who come from poor families? And once they discover, oh my God, we do have a few. Now it is the community which needs to discover what is it that they are doing that is uncommon. Emmanuel and Rose, you will not know what is it that they are doing that's uncommon. But the community will say, oh, they're doing this, and that's not how we do things here. And so once they self-discover, then they own the solution. And if they own the solution, as opposed to buying into somebody else telling them this is the solution. So that's the way you typically engage the community, is by creating the conditions for them to be curious. Is there somebody out here who solved the problem? Is there somebody out here who's getting a better outcome? And who is it? Based on data. And then saying, oh my God, we do have a few people. And let's figure out what is it that they are doing. And given they're poor, they don't have extra resources, they must be doing something. And if you can figure out what is it that they are doing that's uncommon and that is replicable, then they become the owners of that solution.
So the solutions are with the community. And Positive Deviance is seeing a situation where the resources are the same. The problem seems to be the same. So it's not like you're looking at a different community and then replicating whatever they're doing for a different community. It is self-sustainable that way.
Completely. The wisdom is right there. The resources are right there. The problem has been solved for a while. We just didn't have the eyes to see it. So one way of understanding positive deviance is you look at hotspots. So what are hotspots? Spots, places which are problematic. And then you look for bright spots among hotspots. And then you say, oh, this person is doing so well. This family is doing so well in a hotspot, in a spot where they shouldn't be. And so it's like a treasure hunt.
Okay.
Yeah, there's curiosity. It's Sherlock Holmes. Who done it? Yeah.
Dr. Singhal, what are some of the biggest challenges in implementing positive deviance?
I think
using that approach.
Yeah, the biggest challenge is us. And what do we mean by us? The biggest challenge is our ways of thinking, where we begin ordinarily when we want to solve a problem by asking what's the problem. And when you begin by asking what's the problem, we begin by asking what is not working. And we begin by asking what are the deficits, what are the gaps. And that mindset leads us down a certain path where you say, oh, look at this community. They don't know this. They don't have these favorable attitudes. They don't practice these kinds of behaviors. oh my God, we have to come in and we have to, lift them up.
Save them.
Save them. Yeah.
Save
We
your
have that
mentality.
messianic complex. And that's a very big problem, because here the fundamental premise is the problem that you're trying to solve has been solved. So it requires a lot of humility to say, I don't know, but I have faith that somebody here knows or knows better than me. So one of the biggest challenges is us. Our thinking, our ways of thinking gets in the way. It's hard for us to ask questions where we can have faith that somebody facing the highest odds has been able to solve the problem. And we can learn from the community. So that's one of the biggest challenges. Of course, how do you enter a community? How do you work with them in defining the problem in a way that they think it's a problem, as opposed to we telling them, oh, you've got a problem, we need to fix it? How do you create the conditions so that they say, oh my God, yeah, I'd like a better, I want my child to go to school. I want, my child to be well fed. I want my child to be active and running around. So you work with their reality, and we read the work of Robert Chambers, and, the whole notion of whose reality counts. Is it you, the change agent, the do-gooder, the fixer? This is your problem, I'm going to fix it. Or is it, how do they see the issue? How do we work with their sensibilities? And so there's a lot of humility, there's a lot of immersion, there's a lot of consultation, there's a lot of deep respect. As I think Lao Tzu said, if you're he didn't say it for positive deviance, but he basically said that if you want to make a difference, you go to the people. You sit with them at their feet. You eat with them. You talk with them. You begin with where they are. You go to where they want to go. And when they have arrived, they will say, we did it ourselves. It's a very different way of looking at the world.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say this, because one of the pillars of CommDev is participatory. We have to be very participatory in our research, in our projects. Like, we need to see where the people fit. In fact, we need to see where we fit in people's problems, not where they fit in our problems. But there comes a time where, when you come to school, like we are here, you get so empowered, you believe you know it all, right? You want to fix the world. You want to make the world a better place because it needs someone like you. And how do you separate yourself from the knowledge you now have that you think the community is in deficit for? Like, yes, how do you bring that balance that you're like, okay, we want to reach a consensus with the community to say, we agree, there is a problem. How do we approach it?
Yeah, well, there is a skill set that you need. What happens, I think, in most social change programs is we talk about participation. I think we genuinely in some ways want participation to manifest. But our notion of participation is mostly, let them buy into my expertise. Let them buy into my vision. And okay, it's good to consult and to try to convince and persuade. But there's no sense of ownership. How many of us, you and I included, like to be told by somebody what you should be doing? There's a sort of an immune response that we have. Yeah. If you tell me you should do this, it's like, really? Yeah, why? And how many of us, brush our teeth 4 times a day and floss it 3 times a day? We all know that's good.
How many times now?
Well, yeah.
4 times a day.
Exactly.
I thought it was morning and evening.
4.
Okay, well, you know what?
2 is hard enough for me.
Exactly. For most people, even 1 is hard. No?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, we all know what the right thing to do is.
Yeah.
But do we do it? And we don't. So, it's very hard for us to convince ourselves. Talk about the challenge of trying to convince the other what they should do, and for it to have sustainability. So I think awareness, knowing about the positive deviance approach, that there are asset-based approaches, is a good first step. Yeah, that you say, okay, it's a different way of looking at the world. And once you know that, you have to develop the capacity to relinquish your expertise, even if it's temporarily. So when you go into positive deviance work, you basically are telling yourself, I am an expert in being a non-expert, even if it's temporarily.
Take note. Please repeat that.
I am going to cultivate expertise in being a non-expert, which basically means I'm going to have the humility to fundamentally believe that there is wisdom out here of problem solving. And I can only get to it if I suspend it temporarily.
Yeah. That's where the humility comes in.
That is where the humility comes in. That is where, as I said, go. Sit with the people. Eat with them. Sit at their feet. Begin with where they are, not with where you want them to go. Let them take you to where they wish to go. You accompany them. It's a process of accompaniment, not a process of fixing and directing. So that when they get there, they say, we did it ourselves. Otherwise, you're perpetuating all the colonial mindsets of, I know what's better for you. Let me tell you, and look what I did, as opposed to, I own the solution. And I own. So fundamentally, it's a different way of looking at the world. And, you're in CommDev, and you should be trained in looking at the world in different ways.
Mr. Singhal, how long has this approach been in existence? It looks like a lot of practitioners out there do not know this approach of positive deviance.
Yeah, so positive deviance started out in the field. It's not an approach that was born really in academia. It started out in the rice fields of Vietnam in the early 1990s.
Oh, okay.
And, that's where they addressed the issue of malnutrition. And then it went to a few places, but primarily it was driven by a couple by the name of Jerry and Monique Sternen, who worked for Save the Children USA in many different countries. And they sort of refined and systematized this approach. And of course, there was evidence that you could address issues like malnutrition. You could address issues like maternal and child health. You could address issues like female genital cutting, for instance. They did a lot of work in Egypt. And then slowly it began to, spread. There were academic institutions and papers began to be written. But the dominant discourse is still about, gap analysis. The dominant discourse is still very deficit-based. The dominant discourse doesn't ask what's working. Yeah, and fundamentally, positive deviance asks different kinds of questions. And yesterday, I was talking about the importance of questions, because we grow in the direction of the questions we ask. And so if we want to grow, you should ask questions that have not been asked. And positive deviance fundamentally is about a question that has not been asked. And the question is simply, is there somebody who has solved the problem who shouldn't have solved the problem? And that will take you down a different path.
So generally, we ask you, the positive deviance questions are different. So maybe people would want to know how you formulate the question.
No, that's very good. So I'll tell you 3 little stories of how do you formulate a PD question. You ready? You like stories?
We love stories.
Let's go.
Why? Because stories can take you to a place that you've not been. First story, President Lincoln, Abraham Lincoln. He was a tall man. And these stories are just illustrators. No? You got to do some mental somersaults in order to ask the question. So Lincoln was a very tall man. He was 6 feet 4.5 inches tall. And on a battlefield, a soldier approaches him because he was president, commander-in-chief during the Civil War here in the US. And the soldier, salutes him, shakes his hand, only to realize that, oh my God, I'm shaking hands with a tall man. And so he says, oh, Mr. President, you're tall. How tall are you? An expert's response would be, I'm 6 feet 4.5 inches.
Yeah.
Lincoln's response is a little different. So the question is, Mr. President, you're tall. How tall are you? And Lincoln says, son, like you, I'm tall enough that my feet reach the ground. Okay. Son, like you, I'm tall enough that my feet reach the ground. Okay, now this is a very different way of thinking. It's a complete somersault. And here, he's not speaking to the soldier as a president, as a commander-in-chief, or as a very tall man. He is speaking to the soldier as son, like you, the relational, the familial. I'm tall enough. Humility, that my feet reach the ground. That wisdom doesn't lie with the tallest man, with the president, with the commander-in-chief, with the PhD, but lies with the common ground. There are people out here, ordinary people who've solved the problem. So that's the first mindset shift. Second shift, tell you a Mother Teresa story. Mother, would you march with us? Said a group of people when they met Mother Teresa in Washington, D.C. And she says, my child, what is the march about? He said, oh, Mother, tomorrow we are marching against the Vietnam War. Would you march with us? And Mother is silent. And then, people like, Mother, would you march with us? And she says, my child, if you're going to have a march in Washington against the Vietnam War, I am so sorry, my child. But if you were to choose to have a march in Washington for peace, I will be the first to lead. Now, this is a complete flip of the way we look at the world. So ask the question, in Mother Teresa's mind, heart, and spirit, being against the war and being for peace, are they the same thing? No. For one, she says, I'm so sorry, my child. 1 million of you are going to march, but I'm so sorry. But if you were to choose, if you were to make a choice to march for peace, I will be the first to lead. Rarely, as problem solvers, we ask, what are we for? We are always
looking for the negative.
We are looking for what we are against. No? I'm against sexual discrimination. I'm against food insecurity. I'm against, And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. Like there's nothing wrong in saying I'm 6 feet 4.5 inches tall. But this is a somersault. No? And I'll illustrate how it is important in asking a different question. So Mother is saying, instead of asking, what's the problem What are you up against? What are the gaps? What are the deficits? Maybe you should ask, what are you for? What's working? Yeah. What are the assets? Okay, you're with me? So Lincoln is saying the solution to the problems that you want to find are here.
Yeah.
They lie among ordinary people. Mother Teresa is saying, look for what's working. And then the third one, the third coordinate that you need, you've heard about triangulation. So this is, you can say, sort of, a conceptual triangulation, where you're flipping to ask a different question. Story of Gandhi. Mr. Gandhi is the father of the Indian nation.
Yeah.
Lived like a poor man. Yeah. As a father of the Indian nation. Always traveled third class by train. Now, you as a father of the Indian nation could do better. No, you could probably travel first class.
First class.
Exactly.
No, private jets.
Private jets.
Exactly.
Right.
You should. And then, his countrymen would ask him, Bapu, father, why do you travel third class? We as a country can do better. And what's his response? I travel third class because, as you know, there is no fourth class.
So if there was a fourth,
you go for.
This is a very different way of thinking. So Lincoln is saying wisdom is commonly distributed. Mother Teresa is saying, ask what's working. And Gandhi is saying, what's working for the fourth class? What's working for those for whom you least expect it to work? So how do you formulate a question? You begin by saying, let's say you're addressing the issue of malnutrition among children. You say, are there children under the age of 5? You can specify in this particular context. Children under the age of 5, these are variables, no? Children under the age of 5 in this community
who are poor.
Yeah, who are the poorest of the poor, the fourth class, right? Whom you least expect to be food secure.
Yeah.
Come from rural areas where, let's say, the farmer has very small piece of land and no cows, yeah, or no goats. You can measure all these things, no? And who are well nourished. So you have the fourth class, those who face the highest odds, poorest of the poor. You have who are well nourished. That is what you are for, right? And it's a question which is a curious question. You're saying, is there somebody out here, the common ground, who has figured this out? So that's how you ask. A question that has never been asked because it comes from a different way of thinking.
Yeah. I'm really
Very
thinking about it
interesting.
now, and I'm like, I've heard you say this before, but every time you talk about it, it sounds so different. And to me, it says, if anyone is listening, don't listen to this podcast once.
Yeah.
It won't give you what you need.
Yeah.
Listen to it
Over and over.
and over and over. Because also, I feel like positive deviance is practical.
Yeah.
It's not very theoretical.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, now I know what positive deviance is until you do it.
You have to do
practice it.
Yes, you practice
have to do
it. Yeah.
You have to ask different questions. It's easy to say you grow in the direction of the questions you ask, but what kind of questions do you ask? What is that question guided by? The question is guided by a fundamental premise that wisdom is here. It's commonly distributed where you don't see it, doesn't lie with the expert, and you can only see what's working. You can look at the bright spots by asking what's working. That's the reason why it's a bright spot. Yeah. In a hot spot, which is the fourth class. Ooh, bingo.
Problem solved.
No, well, you've begun to lead yourself to a place where you previously did not go. You still have to discover.
Yeah.
And the community has to discover. Because if the answer is there are some people who've solved the problem, now the real work begins. What's happening here? And you wouldn't know what's happening here, but the community would know what's happening here that's different. Yeah. fundamentally, we pay so much emphasis to expertise. We pay so much emphasis to, I know, I'm the president, I'm the commander-in-chief, I'm a tall man. Let me tell you, you shorty, right? Let me tell you. I mean, this is the attitude we have. And our analytical mind always loves to make distinctions. No? I'm 6'4", you are 5'9", right? I'm taller than you. You drive a Toyota, I drive a Mercedes. Yeah, these are the distinctions that we ordinarily make in our analytical mind. Nothing wrong with it. This is how we make sense of the world. But as you make sense of the world, you begin to privilege a certain way of knowing, a certain sense of, look at me. So how does it break the paradigm? That's the first step, the humility part. Yeah. Secondly, as I said, as problem solvers, we ask, what's the problem? Now, what's wrong with that? Because ultimately, you're trying to solve a problem. What is Mother Teresa telling you? She said, you want to, you're against the war, fine. Nothing wrong in being against the war, because war is, not a good thing. You're against malnutrition. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're against malnutrition, then you begin to focus on the gaps. And you begin to focus on the deficits. So begin by asking, what are you for? What's working? What are the assets? That's a different way of thinking. So these three stories paradigmatically subvert the way we are trained to think. I mean, even one way of thinking would be enough to take you to a different place. But you've got to keep these three little things in mind all the time, and they may sound simple, very difficult to do.
Yeah, you grew in the direction of the questions that you asked. Dr. Singhal, your last words.
I think I've read a few things in my life. I've thought about the whole paradigm or paradigms of social change a lot. I've been very fortunate to have been in field settings. And I've also become very, very humble about how much we actually really can do in a sustainable way to change things. And my answer is we can do very little. But I have sensed, given the last 20 years of work that I've done with Positive Deviance, and I teach, hence, what is the only full-length semester-long course on Positive Deviance at the University of Texas at El Paso. I have sensed that this is one of the most ethical, humane, community-centered, people-first, wisdom, but tacit wisdom, not explicit wisdom kind of approaches. And it comes at no cost or low cost because somebody's already solved the problem against all odds. And you don't have to wait to do anything because somebody's already doing something and making a difference. It fits all the check boxes that we aspire to. So that's my last word. Try it.
We will definitely try it. And thank you for having this podcast with us today. And this is what we do as CommDevers, right?
Exactly.
I mean, if there is not enough wealth of knowledge in CommDev, I don't know what you're looking for. But thank you so much, Dr.
Say it
Arvind.
out. Say it.
Say it loud.
Yeah.
We are
Amplifying voices
amplifying
for change.
voices of change like this one. Thank you so much for
My
blessing
pleasure.
us with your
Thank you,
presence.
Rose. Thank you.
And we are out. See you next time. Do watch and listen to our podcast. We love you.
Subscribe, and share.
To all our social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. Just look for CommDev. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
This has been Say It Loud, Voices of Change. Thank you for tuning in. Join us on our next episode. Produced by Communication and Development Studies.
And the cast: executive producer Jesse Gongolo, recording manager Betty Kankambuedu, editor and graphic designer Felipe Barella, guest coordinators Zoya Fatima Hamad and Erica Edzema, administrator Esther Efrier, guided by the director of the program, Dr. Somya Pant.